to order the April 2nd, 2012 meeting of UHS number 6 board. We have quite a lot of students here to present to us tonight, and I guess they're getting their audio visual. They still call it audio visual presentation.
What's it AV, doesn't it?
AV. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and get started. And the first order of business is the clerk's report, and we do not have minutes yet from our last meeting. They will be forthcoming soon. We had a little challenge with computer conversion. Not me. I don't know how to operate a computer, so but we will have them at the next meeting. Are there any communications? Okay. Anything else for the clerk's report? Okay, if not, we'll move on to recognition groups and visitors, and that would be the student council representatives. Is the entire group going to present on the survey?
Yeah, we are at some point, hopefully today.
Oh, you want to? We'll keep moving until you get
okay.
your
Thank you.
Technology together. Okay. Well. All right. We'll move on to consent agenda. Is there a motion to go into consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And second, Lori. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Finance.
Okay. I've got a lot of papers here. As you recall, at the March 7th Finance Committee meeting, we did not have a quorum, so we approved those warrants at the March 21st meeting. And those were warrant numbers 11, 58, 59, 60, 61, 63, 64, 65, and 66 in a total amount of $247,605.88. And at that same meeting, we authorized payrolls from February 10th in the amount of $474,974.22. And the February 24th payrolls of $599,495.18. And then, at the March 21st Finance Committee meeting, we approved warrants numbers 1167, 70, 71, 72, 73, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79 for a total of $481,228. That's that part. Then, at the meeting on March 21st, no, that's a different one. What else did we talk about at that meeting, Bob?
Well, we had payrolls.
I just mentioned
Oh, you did?
payrolls,
Okay.
didn't I?
Covered that. The only other thing was we discussed a little greater length the consulting for the bleacher project, which we had
Yes.
brought up at the full board meeting and covered at that point, but we got a little more detail from Jim Kane on that. And I believe that covers it. Next meeting is Wednesday.
Next meeting is Wednesday, it would be the 4th.
We've changed it back and forth so many times. I think we changed it back to 7:30, yeah. And we have a new member of the Finance Committee. Sean has stepped forward and will help us out with finance, so we're back up to at least 4 members.
Might be a good time to distribute the
Yeah.
new committee.
If we can pass that around. Sure. This is the updated committee listing, and as in the past, sometimes we've had to go through several iterations before we got it exactly as it's supposed to be, but I think we're good here. If there's anything amiss, please let us know. So Sean will be joining us on finance, and we have Melanie, the Career Center Advisory Board, and Mike is on the BAMS committee. Okay.
Yeah. Small bit of technology for.
Okay, all right. We'll keep moving on. Planning and policy.
We met today to review several of the policies that are currently up. There were some changes that will be compiled, distributed to the board, and we'll be announcing them for second reading for our next meeting.
All right, teacher curriculum.
Has not met, but we are meeting in 2 weeks. Just before this meeting will be our next meeting at 6 o'clock.
April 16th, I think that is. Okay. BAMS committee.
BAMS committee also has not met, but we are meeting a week from today, next Monday morning at 7:30 in the morning in the BAMS conference room.
Okay. WRCC.
WRCC did meet last Thursday morning at 8 o'clock. We approved a 1% fund for the Science, Technology, English, Math project Lead the Way. This is a project that has already been completed for Mr. Bramble, Ms. Anthony, and Mr. Houghton. And this 1% fund amounts to $1,500. We also talked about a summer food program proposal, which I'm sure Mr. Coughlin will have more to say about later on. But in a nutshell, that WRCC would hire a manager and a chef to run the daily operations. This is a summer food program for children. It's a program that has been run by another organization in town, and they decided not to do it, and WRCC feels that it's an important program, and they would like to see if they can't continue it. I guess that's...
Those were the 2 topics.
Those were the 2
Yes.
things that we...
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else on the consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. We still waiting? Okay. Why don't we do some administrative reports, and we'll maybe start with Dave, and Steve will want to be kicking off the student council presentation. Probably.
I can start, I believe, with what Ruth was talking about. Up until, and I have to go back, I'm not even sure how many years the summer food program has been running in the Brattleboro area. Basically, it's a continuation of the free and reduced lunch programs that we run here in our schools. so that students during the summer months are able to obtain breakfast, lunch, and a snack, basically, by attending various or showing up at various places, Boys and Girls Club, for example, and throughout the summer, and get their meals and take place in the activities at the same time. The Brattleboro Housing Authority has run this for the last few years. They decided for whatever reason not to run it. We stepped in, consulted with Jim Kane and Ron Staley about it. The basic model would be that we would hire a summer chef and a manager to work here at the Career Center kitchen. Probably some 6 to 8 students, roughly 20 to 25 hours for each student in that range, rotate them in, and they would prepare and distribute. Last year was just under 19,000 meals, so it's a fairly ambitious program as we're doing this. We're excited about doing it. The state of Vermont is very interested in looking at this model and seeing if it works, because it's the first time anybody suggested to use students in the preparations of the meals. And we really hope to be able to use this as a, we certainly have an awful lot of students here looking for work. We're building a list downstairs right now, as students are always come in this time of year and start to look for work. So we're essentially recruiting for the help already. The final application is yet to be submitted for all this, which will be done this week. We're pretty much, the state of Vermont has pretty much assured us that we'll get the project if that goes. It is more or less self-sustaining. That's one of the reasons why Brattleboro Housing Authority isn't doing it now, because it more or less didn't self-sustain last year. We're hoping that we can more or less sustain it this coming year, and there may be some need of bringing some of the Career Center funds into play. We do have some funds set aside for summer projects, which I hope this could be, considered a summer project for kids, because that's what it is. And but the ultimate goal would be to create a model for a summer food program that brings students in to keep them employed throughout the summer, gives them some skills, and use the federal reimbursement money to help pay for it and sustain the whole thing. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. It is far more complicated than that. And I think I'm suffering from the point of where I really don't know much more at this moment. And as I told Mr. Woodworth yesterday or last week when I was talking to them, see me at the end of the summer and I'll let you know whether it was a good idea or not. But I think in the long run it will be a good idea and worthwhile, certainly for the community to have it go.
So maybe you can talk primarily about the funding.
The hot lunch program works on a scale of, I think a breakfast gets $1.79 reimbursement or somewhere along there, and it's around $3.30 something cents for a lunch, and a snack gets all of 79 cents. And then you have to keep fairly expensive records to bring that money from the federal government through the state of Vermont back into the community. I've seen 2 or 3 budgets, to be honest with you, but in the long run it works out to about $60,000 worth of funds come in to run this program. And kind of looking at the way that worked, we believe we can fund the program with the 60 grand and go from there.
If they lose money, Dave, where's that going to come from?
I would say I'm going to have to absorb it out of my budget, to be honest with you. I don't, no businessman goes into business in a sense of thinking that they're going to lose money. The Housing Authority lost a few thousand last year, I believe. It's hard to say. I'm sorry about that. I just violated a school rule, didn't I? Air perfume in school. It's off. It's gone. Certainly one of the keys to that is not necessarily portion control, but meal control. You only get reimbursed for what you serve. You don't get reimbursed for what you prepare. So it's very important to kind of keep good records of all that.
And where would you get your food? Do you buy local? Or?
We would buy local. The beauty of the model we're trying to put together is we are trying to work with the local farm to school people. And again, the model would be to to have a really as much local food as we can get. I must admit that if you'd asked me 10 years ago or 9 years ago when I first came here about summer meal programs, I probably would have poo-pooed it because I didn't think that many kids went hungry. I'm wrong. There are a lot of kids that go hungry throughout the summer. I know that. And I'd like to see the Career Center and us, this board and our students, I don't know if we can correct the problem, we can certainly help get kids the kinds of meals they need in the summertime. So I don't want to see anybody going hungry throughout the summer. And I'm hoping that my promise to the board is that we'll keep good fiscal controls on it. Knock on wood, it'll fly very, very well. And I believe it will be minimal cost to the taxpayer, if any at all. Any other questions on that?
I'd just like to say thank you for taking that on, because it's an important aspect. I mean, I know at the middle school, during the summer, you feed a lot of kids through your summer programs, and the elementary schools and elsewhere, so it's really important. So I hope that works in the local component and bringing students in. I mean, it sounds like a potential win-win-win situation.
Yeah, I think it's 19,000 meals. That's an awful lot of kids that are in need of this service each year. So.
And it's breakfast.
Each of the sites it's served to gets to choose from two of the three options, so they can have breakfast, lunch, or breakfast and a snack, or a snack and lunch. They can pick two of the three. It involves preparing the meals and packaging them, getting them to go, but also distributing the meals to the various sites and getting them back. So.
And I know that NEYT get some lunches.
They are one of the sites.
That's one of the programs.
Yeah. I think there are 11 sites all told, and from what I'm hearing, just from the way the phone's been ringing just in the last couple of days, I suspect we're going to have more sites. Bringing in the farm to school movement is increasing some of the interest. Some of the sites that hadn't been involved seem to be wanting to be involved now. So.
Right.
The other thing I have, which is important, we sent the FBLA up to Burlington last week for 2 days. The really, really good news is because Obama was at the Sheraton Hotel with them also, it was probably the most supervised high school field trip ever. And I assure you that no kid got out of the hallway without somebody knowing they were there. So, but I hope you had a good time for sure. The really good news on all that is 29 or 39 went up. Do you know?
29.
29 went up. And of 29 Career Center students, in all the competitions, they had 71 wins out of the whole thing. That's 21 first place, 16 second place, 7 third place, and 18 fourth place, 9 fifth place. Among the competitions, public speaking, extemporaneous speaking, word processing, accounting, and Excel applications. 2 students won scholarships to the Johnson & Wales for winning the first and second place, which is $1,000 for 4 years. It's not bad. And $750 each year for 4 years. Students also won $575 in cash. And one of our next year's senior, Teresa Gelbeck, is now the Vermont Southern Vice President. Right. So it was a very successful conference for us, and we're proud to have out there and represented our campus.
Did they get to see the president?
No. I have to admit, I watched Friday night to see if I could catch a sight of you guys up there, and they had former Governor Keenan and her husband were on TV for the dinner at the Sheridan. It cost them $5,000 a head to be there. So I don't, you know,
The guys
Obama
that do
didn't
that.
show up for these guys for whatever reason.
Didn't want to take.
So. Not enough money, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you.
Yes, and one.
Are we ready? What are we doing? We'll have Ingrid
Okay.
go first, and then we'll move to the high school and student council.
This week we're visiting 6th grade classrooms as our part of our transition protocol. We've been to 2 so far. The 6th graders have been great. We've really enjoyed our visits so far. This Thursday evening we have 6th grade parents in. This is our annual meeting. It's usually well attended. And you know, we make a presentation, answer lots of questions, and provide a tour. So we're looking forward to that. Today we had a meeting with the elementary school in town, Brattleboro town, foreign language teachers, and that went very well. We had an opportunity, now that we are receiving students who are coming to us with anywhere from 5 to 7 years of instruction in foreign language, it means that we're in a situation of responding to levels of proficiency that we haven't enjoyed in the past, and our curriculum is changing because of that. But we had a very good conversation with the elementary foreign language teachers today, and BAM's foreign language teacher, Judy Abascal, chair of the foreign language department, Lyle Holiday joined us. So it was, I think we all agreed we should do this every year, once a year at this point, because the picture will continue to change as the program grows in the elementary school, which means that what we do will by necessity continue to change. So that was a very nice meeting. We had an excellent training last time, right? It was right when we were meeting, Keys to Vocab training. It was so good, we want to bring this trainer back this year. We hope that we can do that and have her work with teams of teachers in small groups. This Wednesday, we're participating in a webinar on a new math curriculum for intervention-based program for students needing additional academic support. And lastly, I have 2 awards to announce to you as well. Ben Lord, science teacher, wrote an article for Science Journal. I actually do not recall the title of the journal. And he found a way to talk about the naming of biological species, genus and
Genus and species.
and species. Look at that, right there.
Well done.
All right. And he wrote an article that, first of all, I understood, secondly, enjoyed thoroughly. I mean, he's quite the writer. He submitted it for him, for fun. He actually got paid to do it once they received his article, and they've asked him to submit another article. So kudos to Ben. He's an excellent writer. And our 7th grade student, Kaya Holch, student on Teen Taurus, submitted a piece to Mother Goose magazine. It was a national competition, and she took first place nationally for her entry. And I will put something in the next newsletter about that. It's a very personal piece, and she doesn't want the piece itself put into the newsletter, which of course I will honor. But national competition, and she took first place. So that's quite an honor for Kaya. Do you know offhand what the age or grade? Middle school, so in some places it's grades 6, 7, 8, sometimes 5, 6, 7, 8, sometimes 7, 8, 9. But it was in this age category. She did very well for herself. Otherwise, we've been busy the last few days at BAMS. Lots going on.
Okay. Thank you. Let's move on to the high school and student council.
Are you ready? You want me to do my report first and then yours?
Go ahead. We're ready whenever. So whichever order you wish.
Then why don't you go ahead?
Okay.
Would you introduce your crew here before you start?
Louisa Straussman, you know. This is Spencer Haynes. He is president of Student Council. This is Hannah Reichel, secretary of Student Council, and this is Benson May, Lachlan Francis, and Mayor Bonte, who are Student Council members, and Miss Lid, which is faculty advisor. Okay.
Big build up.
Yeah. I just hope it's worth it for those.
You okay? Take your time.
Take your time, relax.
You're okay. You sure?
Yeah, I think,
You want to reboot?
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, well, there, I guess, Mr. Chair, if it's okay with you, I'd like to do all this one item.
Yes.
Okay, and then we'll come back to that item afterwards. So, maybe, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait. Oh.
Are you gonna wait, Mr. President? You're gonna wait?
You go ahead.
All right, so,
So
are you resolved?
it's largely resolved. It's a little cut off, but I don't think there's anything important getting cut off.
Fine, once we get into the slides.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, you guys want to do this?
Well, now that we've resolved our technological difficulties, we can begin. We designed this survey after we got a lot of student feedback this fall regarding the time change, positive and negative, and we felt it was our duty as a student council to respond to that and design a survey which gave us a sense of how the student body and the faculty were handling the time change.
So our goal, obviously, like Anna said, was not to start a campaign to change the time, but with the overflow of comments, we have a suggestion box in the cafeteria and the library. We got many requests just to have a way that students could voice their opinions, so we wanted to make sure that we gave students that option. We want to let everyone know that we might not be in favor of the results or whatever the results are. It's out there. This is everyone's student's opinion, and we can't really change how they're feeling. It's also, change is hard for anyone in the beginning, so obviously people feel more negative with any kind of change because they like how things were. So.
And some people have definitely embraced this change.
Yeah, we've had
I'm
many.
one of them.
Yeah, we feel as a student council that we really like the change. It's nice to not get up very early.
But I hope these results will serve to show general consensus in the faculty and also in the students. We've broken it down by class and by kind of type of teacher, special educator, classroom teacher, counselor, other faculty. So we hope that it'll give you a sense of the response responses. So leave it to the student council to set this.
So yeah, we split. We had 4 basic questions for the students. This is the first, and as you can see, most people felt somewhat negatively about its effect on their other responsibilities, and broken down by class. That is, we did have a higher, the sophomores and juniors as a whole did, as this is my percentage, and as a whole, they tended to favor the hours of 7:45 to 2:20 more than the freshman and senior classes. And you'll see that as we go through the breakdowns of each of the classes. This one people didn't feel as strongly about. As you can see, 43% felt that their access to office hours was unchanged, but we still had a significant percentage. We had 47% saying that it was either harder or much harder to get help from office hours.
It should be also noted that teachers are obligated to provide office hours, to be kind of open for office hours, but this is more a question of students having other responsibilities or things outside of school that prohibited or prevented them from being able to attend the teacher's office hours at the times provided. So that's that.
So this was the second question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we just go back to the first question?
Yes.
There are a bunch of probably.
Perhaps. And that's exactly how the question was worded on the survey?
Yes, that is.
Yes.
So the presumption is that the effect is negative, but it doesn't ask that anywhere.
No, it doesn't. But the we generally took it to mean, and we felt that the students generally took it to mean that any interference or any effect to the balance of activities and responsibilities was most likely a negative change. I believe Hannah and Ms. Lib were the ones who drafted the survey. Do you have any comment on that? I mean, not to throw you under the bus, but I just felt that.
Your question
The
is very
late
good.
bus or the early bus?
And I think the presumption from the feedback that we got was we were trying to figure out if the school time, change of school time was having a negative effect. And we presumed people would say that if it did have a negative effect. Sometimes is pretty average because everyone's going to have sometimes conflicts in their scheduling. So what we're really looking at is if it's often. The ideal thing would be if we could have had room in that survey to ask if it's more than last year, if it affects their schedule more than last year. But still, this serves to show that there is a significant, there is a majority, although it's a very small majority, that finds that the new schedule does interfere often with their responsibilities.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Because I mean, I sort of was taken back by the verb effect as well. Was there an opportunity to comment on things? I mean, so if somebody was confused, and when I give a multiple choice exam, it's always multiple choice explain, so if something's ambiguous, you can say so. So were there people, that and I don't know if you looked at individual forms to see if the 37% negatives were ones that tend to be negative throughout. Is one question, and the second question is if anybody commented on the ambiguity that
We did have a comment section, but none of the comments we received were about clarifications to any of the questions. They were all just clarifications to their own responses for the most part.
Yeah, and we encourage.
I'm just if I were asked the question, I would definitely think that there would be a possibility that I would assume that it could affect my ability in a positive way, just by reading that question. And so I wonder if there were any discussion or clarifications specific to that.
So perhaps it would have been more conclusive if we had given the option to check positively or negatively or something to that effect. So they would say,
Or have two separate questions. Did it affect you positively? Did it affect you negatively?
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. Again, the juniors and sophomores did seem to be the most negative, all this time only by a very slight margin. They found it harder or much harder than the sophomores, freshmen or seniors. And that's kind of an overarching theme throughout this, throughout all the responses that we got to each question. We haven't formally talked about why, but just some thoughts that I've had in some informal talks is that sophomores and juniors would remember the best last year because freshmen had no experience with the 7:45 to 2:20 hours unless they were at BAMS, but that's still a different case since they were at a different school. And seniors, I don't want to say they care less, but it probably, the survey will affect them the least in terms of how their feedback is. And this one was the most surprising to us for both the student responses and the faculty responses. People seemed not to feel any more alert with the start time. I was very surprised by that.
But not any less alert.
But not any less alert. That's true. That's true. I know my response. My response was definitely in that 18% of strongly agree. But we did have over 50% feeling less prepared. And from the comments section, what we can deduce, or what we can kind of deduce from the comments section is that it seems to be that many students are staying up later to cope with the later hours, especially if they have sports or job after school, and then they have to do homework. So I think it's effective them staying up later and then getting up later. So it didn't really seem to change much in terms of alertness, which is unfortunate. And again, for senior and freshman class, we have most of the class agrees, whereas for junior and sophomore, most of that class disagrees. And this is just the basic question that we have that sums up all the other ones. And we do have a definite majority of those who favor 745 to 220. And the surprising number was the 20% who were undecided.
And that 100% could have been entirely seniors.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think a lot of seniors are very ambiguous about it because it's not going to really affect them, and for a lot of them. This is their last year, and either way they're doing a lot of work.
I'm sorry, do they have a different, it's possible for a senior to have a lighter schedule
Yes.
in their senior year as well, so it may not affect them all much.
Yes.
They can have a block less, or whatever.
Yes.
But still, it is a pretty large margin of undecided tallies, which the faculty definitely had a much smaller wedge in that pie.
Yeah, the faculty definitely seem to be more opinionated. So these are, if you just click the next one, you can just get to comments. So these are some comments about arguing against the time change. So you can see a lot about jobs, sports, and not being able to get home. The Marlboro bus no longer runs, so Marlboro kids have to wait till 4 for the mover, and I'm from Marlboro, but I've actually found that not to be so bad, because there's still a way for me to get home But other than that, the bus schedule seemed to be mostly unchanged. Is there any other bus schedule that you know of, Mr. Parent, that's been changed?
No, we had some issues at the beginning of the year working with the bus schedules, but they're really resolved at this point.
And it's with the city bus?
No, with district.
Yeah.
So has there been any discussion with the?
There has been. We've talked to the people that run the Beeline, and one of the questions we've asked them, they can't do it for this year, but we're hoping for next year, that they would run a Beeline bus that would get here. Right now it gets here at 7, which is a little early, but it was good last year. So we're hoping that next year they can adjust it so they get here between 8 and 8:30.
Yeah,
Would they also,
they've indicated that they are going to change the schedule.
and would they consider the afternoon as well? So
Yes.
that seems to be
Right.
one of the
Yes.
issues.
So they'd shift it.
Also, in terms of sports, definitely multiple days are missed when a team has an away game that's a couple hours away. So they have to miss last block or the last 2 blocks. And it's also happened on multiple occasions that they get home at midnight on a school night. So, which would be less of a problem if that was an earlier schedule.
Yeah, that was a comment we got from the.
Times of the sports haven't changed.
Yeah, they haven't really changed the times of
The
the
event
sports.
times haven't changed.
What we've done here is home games. We've asked, and in some cases, gotten good cooperation for games to be to start a little later. That's home contests, but away contests are starting at the same time. So
Yeah, and I think that's where the was going with that, is that they're leaving earlier. So, for instance, I did 2 seasons of sports in the fall and the winter this year, and I had to miss the entirety of block 4 for, I was in Nordic skier for almost every meet. Obviously there was no snow in southern Vermont, so we were driving a little farther. But I'm missing sometimes half of block 3 and the whole entirety of block 4, and that's a huge loss academically. Even if you can make up the work, you're missing class time, and you're often missing important assignments, things that are only happening in class. So it does have its cost, and you might be getting home at the same time, but you still have work to do, and it's a cycle that as an athlete you have to really work out, as a student, as an athlete, and I think it's harder this year to balance those things.
Yeah, a comment in the teacher section that we got was that it was basically that athletes missing 4th block was very unfortunate in terms of a teaching perspective as well as in a learning perspective.
Also, certainly for practice schedule, I know oftentimes in basketball we have practice until 10 o'clock or 9:30, 9:45, and then a drive. I know I live quite, on the borders of Putney and Brookline, so it's a good 25, 30-minute drive home. So, if it's hard to get home between school ending and the beginning of practice, you're stuck in town between 3:20 and practice starting, and then certainly you're not getting home until 10, 15 at the latest.
Can I just ask a question? I don't want to put you on the spot, but either of you maybe can answer this. Where do you put homework? What is your schedule like at night after something like that?
So an average day for me is school till 3:20, and then I get out of school. I'm playing varsity tennis right now, so I will usually get out, go get a snack or something like that, and come back to the school and do homework until about 4:30. So that gives me a block of time between only like 3:45 and 4:30, 4:45 to do homework at school. And then I have tennis 5 to 6:30. I get home at around 7 out of Putney. And I end up having dinner and doing homework usually until 11. And it hasn't affected me that much because we get to wake up an hour later. So last year I was only doing homework till 10 and sleeping a little less. So I think it's all just the cycle. I haven't been that much affected here.
Do you guys feel roughly the same? Like you're making it work somehow?
Yes, I am making work. It's definitely hard to gauge because moving between 10th and 11th grade, your workload increases significantly. So I've found myself, I'm having much less sleep than I did last year, probably by an hour and a half in 11th grade. But that's largely attributed to the amount of work that I have this year. So that's a little difficult for me to personally to compare. But it is taxing to have practice, for instance, in the winter, and get home around 6:30, eat dinner. Once you're showered and unpacked or whatever you have to do, when you come home and it's 7 or 7:30, and then you work on homework until you're done working on homework. So it's a matter of when priorities come in. Sometimes you just have to go to sleep.
Another thing is, as a sophomore this year, I have enjoyed the time change. I found it just even with the practice and sports schedules, I don't know if I get more sleep. I think I get less sleep, but I think again that's primarily due to workload, and I like the time change, but also as I transition to a junior next year, and whether it be going from JV to varsity sports or working a job to pay for gas or looking towards college education, I think it would be harder to fully reap the benefits of the time change if I all of a sudden had to juggle a more intense commitment like a job.
VUHS.
Huh? Then just get up. The first one, the first comment actually surprised me, since it was most of the ones were about against the time change. Sorry, were about the difficulty of balancing their schedule, and this one was a very long and very pro time change that was about how much easier it is to balance the schedule. And then people who are just more alert, I guess, for the last two. Yeah. So then we can check out the faculty numbers.
Did you find more capital letters in the pros and the cons?
We did.
We did,
Keep
yes.
that into consideration.
We didn't make a
Considering
pie
making a
chart for
graph
that, but there's
of-
statistically
but-
many more capital letters. Spencer.
I was going to say something on how the other students were mentioning how they're like on as a junior. As a junior last year, just from perspective, I was having the same problems. I was taking challenging classes, so with the time change or the schedule that we had last year, I was finding that same problem. I mean, I think for another perspective, your junior year is really hard, and you want to take challenging classes. So to get everything fit in, you are going to be staying up late and losing sleep. I know this year as a senior, also my workload isn't as heavy as it was last year, but I am getting more sleep, and so it's like that balance. It depends on what your schedule is. As a junior last year, I was getting 5 to 6 hours of sleep a night, just trying to get my homework done. So it really depends. I know I had things going on after school last year, so I wasn't getting home till the 6 o'clock anyways, doing homework, eating dinner, and then I would go home and start my homework at 7 o'clock. So it was kind of that same balance. I would have loved to have the time change last year, because then I would have had that opportunity to get that extra hour of sleep that I was losing in the morning. So just to get another perspective.
Okay, so here we have the first one for the teachers, and this one is another question about alertness and tiredness, and it was this one. The teachers the faculty for the most part felt even more strongly against the time change for the most part, with the notable exception being the administration. As you can see.
That's what we know.
Yeah, it was only agreeing or strongly agreeing responses from the administration.
Can you go back to the pie chart?
Yeah.
I think your sample size is a little different there.
Yeah, I believe we had 5 responses from
Well, there's
administrators.
only 4 administrators.
Right, so you had 4.
We had 4 responses.
Mr. Perry voted twice.
I stuffed the box. Those are all from me.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just, we had just about a quarter of the faculty felt that they were more prepared and productive, and only half of them felt that change strongly.
one thing to note here is that although a faculty member disagrees that they're more prepared and productive, it doesn't mean that they're less prepared and productive. And I know that that was scribbled into some on the sides of these questions, multiple choice feedback, saying that we didn't actually give an option for the same, which probably would have been wise considering this percentage. But just because they disagree doesn't mean that they feel that they're less prepared, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Their preparedness is separate.
Yeah.
For the record, I'm one of the 13% that strongly agreed.
Then you're more prepared?
I like to change.
You're more prepared?
I'm more prepared, I am.
Good.
Actually, I am.
We've noted that.
You want that bike out there? The bike's gone.
But I think I take Connor's point that it doesn't necessarily mean that they disagree, that they find it hurts their preparedness and productiveness. But I think for the 33% who strongly disagree, I believe they're taking that, and I'm taking that to mean that they find it negatively affecting them, and that's still a third of the faculty, which is a little high. So we can have a look at the administrator graph versus the rest of the graph. There's a bit of a difference.
Has the data been shared about the fewer tardies with the new schedule?
With faculty, it has, yes.
I believe that's an
Not like the students.
So the tardies for the first period last year were 5794, so a little less than 6,000 tardies the first period. This year it's been, and this was first quarter?
This is the first semester.
First semester. So 3753.
Wow.
Compared to close to 6,000.
So that information really could explain this graph, because the kids that are now showing up and aren't more alert just wouldn't have been there last year.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to... No, very good.
And again, like Hannah said for the last graph, those 41% who disagree might not find that it affects their students negatively, although we did have several comments from teachers that for their fourth block classes especially, they found that their classes were less attentive and focused. So, again, the administrators are the outliers, I should say.
Or the leaders.
Yeah. So we had 62% of faculty who said that they chose the highest, the most level of effect it had. And again, this doesn't say whether it negatively affected it or positively affected it. We will take that note in developing future surveys. But it's still quite a high number. And among the comments we found, we had comments from faculty ranging from "I can't walk my dog in winter" to like "I can't make any appointments with my doctors or dentists" or anything like that.
And that's a comment that applies to students as well, because I know that it's much harder now to schedule appointments, doctor's appointments, especially things that last a while, that last an hour. It's harder to schedule those without missing school, or at least a portion of a block, or a block in the middle of the day, because many offices aren't open past 4:35. So that's definitely something to consider.
So yeah, we had over 2/3 of the faculty who favor the old school hours. And again, they were much more opinionated than these students. Only 8% were undecided about it. Much more opinionated and much more against the time change. And we have to break it down by demographic. And I'd just like to point out the demographic. We have other, which is other. Something other than counselors, administrators, special educators, or classroom teachers. So I don't know what else is there.
Paraprofessionals.
If I knew what that was, I would be impressed.
Support staff.
Support staff.
So we do have majority of the administrators favoring, the majority of everyone else favoring something. And we can take a look at some comments. So again, the first one is about athletes. And then scheduling, and then something about students, which is, again, scheduling for students, and then alertness. And then we have one pro comment, and then we've got several more undecided, but one is cut off.
Yes. The last comment is morning blocks yes, last block no.
So,
I think that was probably a response that was on the back of the survey, and that was in response to the alert and prepared.
Yeah.
Students more alert and prepared.
And
Morning blocks, yes. Last blocks, no.
again, with the second one, block 1 only, they felt more prepared, but block 4 was less prepared. So this is just a summary of the results, which is we had 53% of the students and 71% of the faculty who favored the old time. And in total, we just added up the numbers, and because of the smaller number of faculty, it only changed it to 56% of combined faculty and students favored the old time change. We do have a graph for that. And the main reasons were the fact that they felt the change in alertness was either negative, about the same, or not enough to make up for the disruption in schedule they have. And if you could just read that last thing, because it seems to be...
Majority of faculty and students feel the disruption in their schedules is too great. So.
And then we have a final graphic. Yeah. So that's the overall total.
And one point that wasn't made in the presentation or asked about in the survey is that the lunch schedule is hard to deal with because we have 3 lunches right now, A, B, and C C lunch gets to eat at 1:20. But I, speaking as somebody who has C lunch, it's a long time.
That's all of block 3, and that's 120. In the old schedule, you would have already been in block 4. You would have had lunch.
Yeah.
Before that, so.
When we were looking at the lunch schedule last year, I traveled to several advisories, and I asked them, I gave them the choice. I said, if you had a choice, would you, and maybe you were one of them, I said, would you want to have your lunch earlier or later? And I didn't have and nobody said that they wanted it earlier. They all said they wanted a block 3 lunch because they had to snack during advisory. So they felt like, because if they got to school at 8:45, they didn't feel having lunch starting at 10:30. They were like, that's too soon. So,
And that.
yeah,
Do they still get snack and advisory this year?
they do.
Yep.
And that's every person?
They can get it. They can buy
You
it.
could buy it.
No, not every child has snack, but those who bring it or buy it.
Bring it or buy it?
And some advisors provide food.
Some do,
Yes,
some
the
don't.
nice ones.
It's a nice one.
Yeah.
You must.
I don't.
Oh.
Not this level.
Well,
See? No offense.
Yes.
No offense, though.
Also, one thing that this doesn't take into account is the parents. We have only students and faculty, which actually, in my opinion, I think those are the ones who their opinion should matter most about the time change, since it most directly affects them, since it's their education and their jobs, but I do appreciate that some parents may have been negatively or positively affected. It seemed to me, just judging based on no evidence whatsoever, that last year in the when we were going through the survey process about changing the time to 8:45, it seemed to me that parents were the most vocally in favor. Did you find that, Mr. Perrin?
I didn't.
Maybe it was just my parents.
It was.
Middle school parents.
Middle school was like 2 to 1.
Yeah.
Elementaries were in favor.
Yeah.
I think the high school was in favor.
It was parents who initiated the whole
Yeah.
change anyway, so I think that's probably a fair statement.
And I would be very intrigued to do that survey again and see how parents feel about it now, especially being having the full effects of the time change and seeing what they think now.
What I would suggest, and I've given this to your advisor, it's a variation of the survey that we used last year, which essentially gave the choice of, do you support the change or not, and then if you support the current schedule, now this current schedule, list 3 reasons why you think it's beneficial to students or the community. If you don't support the schedule, list 3 reasons why you do not think it's beneficial. I think those open-ended questions really provide a little bit more balance in terms of what you're going to get.
The advisor
results.
did share it with them.
Yeah. So I would just consider modifying your survey.
Has anyone undertaken seeing if people maybe don't feel more prepared, but have any results implied that they're more prepared, or is there any tracking of that?
Aside from the tardy data, we've also been tracking failure data and students that get Ds. And for first semester, we have fewer students getting Ds and Fs. Is it as dramatic as the tardy data? No. But we're going to kind of keep an eye on that and see what we see as that develops. So we didn't get an increase, which is nice. So one thing I did notice that was an unintended consequence is I proctored the SATs, which start at 7:30, and seeing the students come in the morning on a weekday, they felt that. And when I reminded them, this is when you came to school last year all the time, they're like, we did. And then they walked away.
Give the survey now.
I do think one thing that has been up this year, I don't know if it is impacted by the time change at all, but harassment is, the level of harassment has gone up.
It's gone up.
Yes.
From harassment student to student.
From the time.
Well, no, she's not saying there's any growth.
This year versus last year. But
That is something that has increased.
Can you clarify? Are you saying harassment?
We don't have any evidence of correlation. She's just saying that is something that should be noted as a change from last year.
The administrators?
Harassment at the high school is higher this year. I guess I'm attributing more of that to Facebook harassment. As we're tracking it now, we're seeing more and more of the harassment moving to an online environment.
Another question that I have is that we've already talked about one about the Beeline, about what sort of, if we stayed with the time for another year, it's probably we need to let it run a little bit. People get used to it. Of what improvements or changes the administration is thinking of, and if the students have suggestions of what would make things work a little better.
I mean, in general, or just transportation?
Well, transportation was one, but other sorts of things. I mean, and I've heard lunch schedules, transportation, sports, practices.
One of the things we
maybe more. I mean, we've talked about it at some very general level, both of the town board when I was down in here, of sort of more flexible schedules of maybe starting some things earlier and some things later to accommodate.
One thing that we're looking at, and we started last Tuesday with the faculty, we haven't brought it to the students yet, is looking at inserting a period, an academic support period in the school day. In the current model, that would be at the end of the day.
Mr. Graham, would that be a period or a block?
That would be a modified period. It would be 40 minutes The model we're looking at now is based on models that other schools in Vermont use that have what they call a callback or FaceTime. So we're looking at a couple of models that would allow us to build in time where students would report back to advisory. Then from their advisory, they would report back to a teacher who, maybe the student has a lab to make up, maybe they have an essay or quiz to finish, that they would go back and do that.
What would happen, what would the students who didn't have anything deficient or behind, what would they do during that period?
A couple of things. One thing that we're hoping that it would engender is more collaborative projects by teachers where students could actually use that time. If I have a ninth grade student that lives in Putney and one of them lives in Vernon, and they literally go different directions when the buses leave, they'd have a chance to work together during that time. The students that weren't called back to get help from a teacher would stay in their advisory. So they report back to advisory and stay there. So we're playing around with that model. We've looked at putting it at the end of the day. That would have an unintended benefit for athletes. We've also looked at putting it in the middle of the day. Haven't shared that with students yet. What we're going to do next is share that with, we're going to actually talk, every semester we talk to students who are currently getting D's and F's. So we're going to take that information and we're going to actually ask those students who are our most vulnerable students and say, if you had this opportunity during the day to go back and work with your teachers, would you take advantage of it? And see what they say. The benefit for the teachers is that would loosen up office hour time after school, because right now it's a challenge for teachers because we have school-wide meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays every week, so it would give the teachers some time. That's still, that's something we've talked to teachers about. The next step is to bring it to students.
For what it's worth, I have heard from adults within the wider community, parents and other adults, and their comments on this are, what are these kids going to do when they get out into the working world and they are expected to be at work at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they are in the habit of not being at their workplace, which is school, until 8:45. They're going to go to work and say, I'm sorry, but Mr. Staley says we shouldn't be getting up this early in the morning.
I feel as students will just adapt. Like we adapted from last year to this year, we'll just keep adapting. We're young.
But I think the feeling amongst some of the adults, at least, is that this is developing poor work habits.
Well,
Can I just say something about, just as a parent in one of the outlying towns, I could tell you how heartbreaking it was to see high school students waiting for the bus before the light. It was really distressing.
And
They looked like they could barely speak, much less sit in a class and absorb information.
I have a very hard time concentrating last block.
I can completely understand that, and I had something I wanted to say about that, if I could. Can we lower the temperatures in the classroom? Can we, that's something I think is that's a valid point. I really think it's important that if it's the last block and it's hot in the classroom and the oxygen is low, they're going to nod right off.
It's easy on the east side of the building, not on the west.
I think before we move off of the work ethic thing, I'd just like to mention that I think we do hope, most people hope that their kid would go to college, and I feel like in college, considering that some classes don't start, some students may have classes that start at 4 in the afternoon. I know my sister does. My sister did last semester when she was at college. She had some days where she would wake up at 2 and go to class like half an hour later. So I don't think that an hour time change in the high school schedule will make a huge effect on it.
Two things. I think one about the X period. I think it would be interesting to see if if students who have a job, who had attained a job after school, say working a price job, we would be able to get like a waiver or something of.
No, it wouldn't change the school day for students. It would still be the same thing.
So it'd be, so you cut down on blocks. You would take a certain amount of time out of the block.
Right.
And then second, I know when I was in elementary school, I didn't attend a school in this district of Massachusetts, but my brother, who went to high school at the time, would pick me up from school, and he got out, I'm not exactly sure, 45 minutes before me, and he would come and pick me up and take me home and do all that sort of stuff. So I don't have any younger siblings, but I know for someone who did, and whether their parents, certainly something that happens around here a lot is, my mom works an hour and 15 minutes away. So if it's kind of difficult to balance that obligation, and I have no idea how the bus system works, but I know that the elementary school starts at 8:15, and so what any possibilities would be of switching. I think that a change next year would be a bit radical, considering we just changed now, but looking into the possibility of now switching, so if high school started at 8:15.
We actually looked at that. We looked at that model, 8:15 or 8:30, and putting the elementaries a little later. And what we found is, especially during the winter season, it's a disaster in districts that have done that because of darkness and safety and that sort of thing. So we actually did look at that model, but it just didn't seem like it would make any sense.
So there were too many cons in terms of elementary students getting out later in the day.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that makes sense, but it also makes sense in terms of a lot of parents who send their kids to after-school programs. Not that that's a bad thing for the kid at all, but they have to because they don't get out of work until 5 or 5:30.
We not part of this change, but we've had after-school programming expanding, and for the Brattleboro system, it's in every school, and we find that it's a benefit that for the academic support and enrichment, those students can stay, and it does provide childcare, if you will, for parents, and that's worked out pretty well. The outlying schools are expanding that as well, so I mean that wasn't part of the plan, but it's an unintended consequence, which has seemed to work. Don't tell elementary students, but we're secretly expanding their day.
Okay. Ed, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before we move off that subject line, what exactly is the plan at this point? I know when we initiated this last year, we said we would evaluate it. What's the time frame?
Well, I think we're very likely to keep it as it is for at least another year. The elementary systems, they seem to have gone well. I haven't gotten the complaints that Ms. Barton has. Ruth, I would let those people, let them know they should be talking to me. That would have a direct impact. But overall, we've had pretty good satisfaction on the elementary ones. I would say, based on the improved tardy information, and, this is new data, so I think it will take it into consideration. I would want to work with whoever wants to do a follow-up survey to have an instrument that might be gain more valuable information.
And not to put you on the spot time-wise, but just so that people can.
Yeah, I don't see it changing for next year.
Okay. Take that to the bank.
But I think, as was suggested, there will be some tweaking and modification. I know that the town, the Connecticut River Valley bus transportation, they are much more cooperative with us for next year than they were this year. So I think that'll have a positive impact in some of the other adjustments that we can make.
So, more on the high school report?
There's a little bit. So, but before I do anything else, I do want to recognize that Hannah Reichel, who is right here, will be representing VUHS at the Middlebury Young Writers Conference in May. So I do want to recognize that. So in other news, there is a little bit of other news. We are doing student scheduling. It should be complete tomorrow for next year. Not the master schedule, but having all of the high school students entered. The next step is to get our sending school students entered, and then we'll begin the process of building the master schedule, hopefully within 2 weeks. The other news, which I'm less pleased to share, is, as most people know, Friday night, about 10 o'clock, we had some vandalism here at the school. It was pretty extensive. There was nothing structural, but it was almost exclusively graffiti being sprayed on the BAM's wall that faces the track, on the sidewalks in that area. The Colonel's Den had graffiti sprayed on all 4 walls. In addition, all of the lights in front of the Colonel's Den were broken. A large traffic light that we had planned to install behind the Colonel's Den to provide illumination during games that was laying on its side. The lenses for that were, and the lenses were kicked in and cracked as well. A private vehicle parked here had a windshield broken. I got an email that I had opened up Saturday morning. I came in the next morning, called Ingrid, called Ron. They joined me along with 2 officers from Brattleboro Police and 2 officers from the Vermont State Police. We then called in our safety coordinator, Jesse Hall, who really should get special recognition for the job he did in running the cameras for us. And also looking at camera footage that we had and camera footage we got from other sources. And Mr. Hall was able to use that and help identify students that we believe were involved in it. So Mr. Hall does deserve special recognition for his role. It was significant in helping us move ahead in this investigation. Also, I need to thank Robert Clark and Tom O'Neill. They organized work crews that came in on Saturday afternoon and Sunday. Jason Albee and Russ Bartell came in and sandblasted to remove most of the graffiti. There is still some graffiti left on some portions of the BAM's wall. We're still working on that. One thing that was amazing that happened during the process is late Saturday afternoon, when Dave Solmosky and Chad Pachika, who are our groundskeepers, were outside getting ready to paint the Colonel's Den to cover up the graffiti. The lacrosse team came back from a scrimmage. And when they got off the bus, they looked at the damage, and they walked over, and they asked for paintbrushes and paint rollers. And those gentlemen helped paint the Colonel's Den. And those gentlemen are Greg De Silva, Connor Elliott Nags, Colby McGinn, Kyle Patno. In addition, Sam Siegel, John Thompson, Devin Avery, Aaron Prue, Nick Rancourt, and Dave Mahoney were there participating. I'm pretty sure we didn't miss anybody. I wanted those gentlemen to be recognized for what they did. They really emphasized our new core values and their commitment to their community. So at this point, we know from the Brattleboro Reformer that there have been 3 young people that have been taken into custody. Obviously, we're not going to talk a lot about that. I did ask, as part of our response to the police department, I was asked for an estimate of the damage. And we can't give a firm estimate now, but it looks like it'll range from about $14,000 to $20,000 to repair what was done here at VUHS number 6. That may include some extensive work on the BAM's wall, because it's a different kind of brick. And when we tried to sandblast that particular type of brick, we didn't do any better at getting rid of it because the pigment soaked in. And muriatic acid, which is another substance that would be used, would probably bleach the wall instead of getting rid of it. So we don't know what's going to happen there. There were 2 small blemishes on the track. Robert Clark, the facilities manager, is still getting hold of the track people to find out how we remove that and what that looks like. So, it was, obviously it was a reprehensible act carried out by a very small number of people. We're going to pursue, both Ingrid and I will pursue discipline consequences if necessary. That may involve the board at a future time. But I don't want to lose sight of the response of both our staff and our students who really exemplified Colonel Pride for us. So I want to recognize that. And I'm sure I have a couple of questions.
I would like to just make a comment. I appreciate 2 things. One's that Steve came down to my place of work to fill me in, and I went up to the high school as quickly as I could out of work, and had I not specifically been looking carefully, already by Saturday at 5:30, it was pretty hard to tell that anything had happened. And that's pretty impressive, because he also showed me all the pictures that he had taken of what was there initially. And so the response of the students and staff is highly commendable. It is a reprehensible act, and there was potential for far greater damage, and particularly in other parts of town where some really tragic things could have happened. And fortunately, no one was injured. That's one good thing about it, I guess, if you can find something. But I think the response was, I was incredibly impressed with how much had been done to eliminate that. So, thank you.
I do have a question. I don't want to ask too many details, but can you tell anything about the nature of the graffiti? Like, was there some point that they were making, or was it just a...
There wasn't a theme, unless the theme was crudely drawn phallic symbols.
Oh.
And along with that, there was a number of representations associated with some rap songs. Not saying anything wrong with rap songs, but when we looked online to see what some of the references meant, and they were connected to specific rap artists that I'm not going to go into right now.
We learned a lot.
We did.
But no specific group was targeted?
No.
Fairly inclusive.
Yeah.
Yeah. From seeing all, I think pretty much all of you showed me just about everything. It just seemed like there was an attempt to come up with every word that would get somebody riled up. Whether it had reference, sexual reference, or ethnic or whatever. It just seemed like if I write this word, somebody's going to get really upset, so I'm going to write it.
And they were all students?
I really can't. I can't
say that.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Central office.
So we have a supervisory union board meeting this coming April 12th at Putney. For the voting members, that's Ruth, Russ, and Melanie. So that's going to be April 12th at 6 p.m. at Putney Central School. 6 p.m. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify that all of the board members received the materials.
Yes, you did.
Because historically, I have been on that board, so I received it, but I'm not on it, and I
Yeah,
received
all
it.
board members, all 34 board members received packets.
Okay.
But we just want to make sure the voting members, or actually any members can attend, you're welcome to attend. So
6 o'clock on
6 o'clock
at Putney.
at Putney. The other thing I wanted to announce is that I'll be taking 3 high school students along with Tom Yan, and I will be going to the Senate Education Committee hearing tomorrow to testify on the dual credit bill that they have in the Senate. Jason Chatney, Alexis Takai, and Caleb Bernia Sondag, students that have taken dual credit courses and were interested in testifying tomorrow will be joining us at that hearing. And we've already spoken in front of the House Ed Committee, not with students, but when we had a phone conference with the Senate Ed, I suggested that maybe they'd want to hear from students, and they actually scheduled us in tomorrow, so that'll be good for them to go up and talk with legislators. And we do have 2 staff appointments to make tonight. We have a Career Center appointment. Yeah. Want to speak about that?
Yes, I asked the school board to approve Barb Vinci, presently special educator at the high school, to take over the position of Fran Kelsey, who is retiring this year in the business department. Barb came to us a number of years ago and did her student teaching in our business department. And we were happy that she was able to get a job at the high school, and we're also very happy to see her come back to the Career Center and teach business also.
So we should have a motion.
Yes. I'll move that we approve Barb Vinci for a new position within the business department at the Wyndham Regional Career Center.
Second.
Okay. Got dueling seconds. I don't know who was first. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
We have, I'm sorry, and we have one other appointment from BAMS.
It's an appointment that would shift a current teacher from a one-year contract to a regular contract. She's been working in our building this year. Her name is Ann Kaplinka-Ware. It's a hyphenated last name, teaching social studies, and it is my wish to convert her contract. She was hired on a one-year contract, and I'm now seeking approval to replace that with a regular contract for her.
Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the change of appointment from a 1 year to a regular contract for, help me with the last name, and
Kaplinka-Ware.
At BAMS.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, unanimous.
One exception.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that's all I have.
Okay. Board Chair, I would just pass along, I had brought up, I think at the last meeting, an interest in kind of reestablishing board education as part of our board meetings, perhaps once a month. And I have asked Dave if he would, for the next meeting, give us a little presentation. It's a very current issue is the STEM program and Project Lead the Way, which I think probably most of us are familiar with somewhat but don't know a lot about. It's a pretty exciting program. So we will hear at our next meeting a presentation from Career Center personnel and students maybe, or just...
Yeah, it's not totally planned yet. Yeah. But it'll be under an hour and a half.
Under an hour and a half, okay. Well, will there be an audio-visual component?
I'm sure there will.
Okay.
And I'll try to make it
Yes.
work.
Will the Career Center be ready?
Will there be food?
Okay. So I would like to see it. I know that we get into budget times and so forth, and sometimes it falls by the wayside, but I know in the past when we've had these, they've been certainly helpful to me, and I think they will be to a lot of... And this, I think, is a fascinating topic, and we will certainly hope that the BAMS and the high school will have some interesting presentations for us down the road. I'm sure they will. Okay. Did we cover everything, student council, BAMS? I guess we got all the 6 administrative reports. Is there any unfinished business? Have anything? New business. We've talked about the start time survey.
We just covered the personnel.
And the personnel matters. So I don't believe there's anything else under new business. Our next meeting will be on the 16th. And Finance again meets day after tomorrow. So is there anything else for the good of the order?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Not going to abstain from that one. Keep going. Thank you very much. Thank you. Great job.